Jesus, you know there's much on my heart and my mind, but again I submit to your will and your ways and surrender to being a sacrifice. Your little ball, whatever you decide to do with me and how you decide to do with me, I surrender, Lord. And as an aside, family, I just shared that the Lord called me to the mountain to stay until my return to Ghana, and boy was that a trial. I had to inform Derek first, and he was not crazy about the idea, but yielded because I was okay with it, and it was the Lord's will. Then I had to tell my family, which I did, one by one. And again, everyone wasn't so crazy about the idea, but they yielded. Besides my mom, who was still called here and there, tried to convince me otherwise. Hence the message the Lord gave me about pleasing the family. Well, it seems their uncomfortability about my decision was able to persuade Derek a bit more to finally say that I should go back home instead. I found myself frustrated at this trial because Jesus was telling me one thing, my husband was telling me one thing, and then my spiritual covering was feeling another, and very strong, in fact, that I need to follow the Lord. I was all wound up and resentful at this cross again, if I can be honest. And when I went to the Lord, if it was His will for me to stay on the mountain, I got joy. Then after speaking to Derek, going back and forth about this change in his mind, as I finally got settled and made arrangements and changed to stay now on the mountain, I have to go back. And then I asked the Lord again, should I submit to Him, Lord? He's my husband. I got joy. I was so confused. I've come back to the mountain in a different state of life than I was before, so things are different now. And although the Lord has taught us to follow His leading and to be obedient, and had warned me that I was leading myself by going back to the world and back home, now I have to submit to my husband in all things. If I can be honest, it triggered a lot of emotions from the last time I was on the mountain when I first arrived. Was it 4 years ago? And the trial I went through with my family being here, the same thing. And even between me and Derek, to the point that we separated. So I pulled the rhemas from St. Faustina's book as I said, Lord, why this contradiction again? And I opened to her asking the Lord, why is He giving such a hard trial to a priest? And Jesus said, it's because of the triple crown He is to receive. I sighed and went to Mother Claire to discern everything. She was also torn, because we both want to do the Lord's perfect will, but understood this usurps that. And we believe the Lord would be rather pleased that I submit and go my own way. So His perfect will is for me to be here on the mountain, but His permissible will is for me to go back in order to submit and honor my husband's request instead. Jesus began, I'm giving you the grace right now to have a better disposition in this trial, beloved, just as what you read today in the Imitation of Mary. I would like you to continue getting rhemas from there daily. The reading I got from the book, guys, was titled Disposition and Trial, saying, nevertheless, not my will be done, but yours be done, like Mary did. There's a lot to learn from my mother. I'm sorry this has been difficult for you, but this is all in my will yet again. I want to be able to do whatever I desire with my brides, lead them in directions, and if I say turn, or change directions, or even turn around, even that, they do out of obedience. I told you, your life would be filled with contradictions, but it's also to stretch your faith and continuously teach you in obedience and humility. I'm also doing a work in your family, whether you realize it or not, so please bear with me and adjust to the changes. The more you pray daily to my mother and doer of knots, the more things begin to get clearer and easier for all, including your beloved, to submit to my desires, my will, and my leading in his life, and that of your family. So it's very necessary that you pray the rosary daily as you're here. My beloved, I'm making you to a great example of a soul, whose will and whose life is abandoned to me. Did you not once ask me for that? To be like that of Heidi Baker from Iris Global. I told her to leave China and head to Mozambique, with nowhere to go, nowhere to stay, but she was directed once she got there, and her husband and her were in agreement. She had been left in the midst of a civil war, and I provided for her. And that was just one of the many acts of her blind obedience that led her to see the greatest revival in the nation and lead it as well. So know that I'm in the twists and turns. This will also in turn soften your beloved's heart more and more to submit to his leading, even though at times it may be This will also in turn soften your beloved's heart more and more, submitting to his leading, even though at times it may contradict mine. Do not push, do not impose or force what I've said to you, but take an example from my mother as well. When she was pregnant with me in her humility, she never told Joseph, but trusted that God would cover her. God would speak to him as he called him to be her covering and protector for me and her. Don't you think for once she didn't struggle with this? Although she never lost her peace, there were days of worry and anxiety, imagining seeing her belly grow, knowing Joseph knows and many others see it too, but saying nothing, and trusting Lord to come to her defense, to make his will clear. And he did, just like he'll do for you, when you lean on to him and surrender to the trials that he allows in these situations. This is a great example for my married brides. My beloveds, if I give you instructions and your husband does not agree, as long as it does not go against your conscience, or whether he's leading the family is not in sin, then yield to his leading, please. If he is in error, I will correct him. Sometimes, not always, stopping him from the path he has chosen, but other times allowing him to pass through it, so he can learn to value your discernment and wisdom as well. At times, as a test of humility, surrender and obedience for you, even if you're more spiritual than your spouse, or even if he's an unbeliever. Allow him, please, to make the major decisions for your family. Do not usurp his authority in any way, or try to lead in any way. You pray, gently and lovingly bring up the counsel I've given and shown you, and leave it in his hands and in mine. I will deal with him and work with him to do my will more and more. However, if you become bullheaded, certain of your way in hearing from the Lord, there will always be a place of contention between you two, and the enemy will always use that to cause rancor and strife. There will be many more times I will speak to your husband, just like I did St. Joseph, when he was prompted to leave Bethlehem and flee to Egypt. My mother responded promptly and obediently. Imagine if she dragged her feet, or need to seek the Lord, or need to seek God about his instructions first, or need to have her own peace about it. I would be dead. She had full peace because she trusted that the Lord spoke to Joseph, and I need you to trust, my beloved married brides, that I will do and speak to your husbands on your behalf, according to my will. Your job is to pray. There are some unique instances, as Mother Claire gave in her testimony, of being unequally yoked with someone I never put you together with. In some instances, you have to make a decision to continue on in that relationship or leave to follow me to fulfill your destiny. For those situations, I make it very clear to you, as I did Mother Claire and Father Ezekiel, and the fruit in their lives testify that they made the right decision in leaving their marriages to follow me. There are some of you who are in that situation, and you know who you are. It's a hard choice and a hard cost, but I promise you, you won't regret it, and I'll help you navigate through uncertainties until you find me. Find your way in the path which I've called you to take, with you and your children. I have something wonderful in store for you if you laid the marriage down at my altar. For others, such as Little Mother, especially my female brides, you'll be tested this way over and over and over again. I'm raising many of you up as lionesses to preach the gospel all over the earth, but I need lionesses who are submitted, obedient, and humble. You may have great gifts and anointings, but if you do not honor your husband and their leading, and heads as your covering in your day-to-day life, then your gifts to me are useless. Let your submission and surrender begin at home first. Many of you are strong-willed and much closer to me than your counterpart husbands, but that doesn't mean you lead. That means you rather should serve, pray, and lead from example, my beloved ones, in love and obedience. And if there's anything you truly do not have peace about, come to me. Let us reason. Leave it in my hands to instruct, correct and guide your spouses in the way they should go when your convictions are not heard. And that was the end of Jesus' message.